So thank you. So I'm Gill Hoor from Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And I will talk you through my implementation struggles when developing and implementing a physical activity program in Dutch high schools. So before I actually go into the more implementation side of this, I spent maybe a minute on the program itself, give you some highlights of the program, and then I will dive deeper into the implementation. So we wanted to create a physical activity program for overweight and obese youngsters, but within this program, we did not want to focus on overweight and obesity. We did not want to be stigmatizing, and we wanted it to be as motivating as possible. And we did this by with the idea that we wanted to focus on strength exercises. And the idea behind this is relatively simple. We know that overweight and obese people are heavier compared to their normal weight counterparts. With being heavier, they have more fat mass, but they also have more muscle mass. More muscle mass be that they are stronger and better in strength-related exercises. And if they can engage in those strength exercises, their fat-free mass increases, their muscle mass increases, their body composition improves, their energy metabolism improves with all kind of long-term health consequences. At the same time, from a more psychological perspective, we know that these youngsters who are overweight or obese are heavier, that they are better in those strength exercises, that it's more fun to engage in those strength exercises. And with that, they will be more intrinsically motivated to engage in those strength exercises. And this intrinsic motivation is needed to achieve long-term behavior change. And again, if people are engaging in strength exercise on the long term, this might lead to all kind of beneficial health consequences. On top of that, we made use of the social comparison theory on multiple dimensions. It's a mouthful, but this theory basically says that everyone in this room, including myself, is comparing him or herself with the rest of people in this room on multiple dimensions. And if I'm better than all of you, my self-worth increases. If I'm not as good as you, my self-worth decreases. And I will try to stop comparing myself on this specific dimension, and I try to compare myself on different dimensions with you. But this is also what you constantly see when it comes to physical activity. So normally this person thinks, I'm better in physical activity than all of you, while at the same time, this person thinks I'm not good in physical activity. I'll stop being physically active, and I'll try to compare myself on different dimensions, like I'm very good in guitar playing or well, whatever. Of course, we don't want that, so we decided to split up this dimension in two, so a strength component and an aerobic component, where you actually could achieve something like this, that also the overweight person can be active on the physical activity domain. Well, for today, I'm not going to bother you with the results of the intervention, but we had a successful program. We found improvements in body composition. We found improvements in physical activity behavior. So we had this successful program. So the first step in our implementation was, of course, to make sure that everyone was aware that we had a successful program. And I think in the first week of our successful program, we were world famous in this red province of the Netherlands, named Limburg. So we appeared in all in all newspapers, in all radio stations, on all local TV programs. So very good, very helpful, but of course not good enough. In that same week, I also received a phone call from the national media. And after a 45-minute interview, the question from this national media was, do you think this is interesting for the rest of the Netherlands? And the rest of the Netherlands is basically, well, that red province is 1/12 of the Netherlands. So I immediately said, yes, of course, it's improving overweight and obesity, or it's making overweight and obesity. How do you say that? It's helping people with overweight and obesity. It's not stigmatizing. It's a small change in the curricula of school physical activity programs. I came up with a whole lot of arguments. And then they said, yeah, all interesting, but I'm not going to publish it in the national media. And you know why? Because you only test schools in Limburg, in that red area of the Netherlands. And because you did that, it's not interesting for the rest of the Netherlands. Of course, oh gosh, I'm going too slow. So that was problematic, especially in terms of making people aware that we had a nice program. It took actually 6 months before the national news media took up the news that that we had a successful program, but it actually took 6 months after we had the successful program. But luckily, we appeared not in one, but 12 newspapers on all national TV and radio, so that was good. So of course, then the next step was that we needed to adopt the program. And adoption in this case was very easy. And of course, if you look at adoption, if you're not looking at the right way to adopt your program, your entire implementation fails. While the adopters for a program were the the school principals, we identified the main important reasons to actually do the program. So they had very positive outcome expectancies. They really supported the program. So that was easy. Adoption, not a problem for us. It became more problematic when we started looking at the implementation, so the actual execution of the program. Because again, if you do not identify who are in charge of implementation, your implementation fails. Well, for us, the implementers were the physical education teachers, and we actually asked those physical education teachers, why would you implement our program? And they immediately said, well, there are two things we need. One is we need time to actually prepare your program, and two is we need more materials. So we anticipated it. We actually talked to the adopters, the school principals, and they were very supportive. They said, okay, we're going to give them more time. We're going to give them all the materials to conduct your program. And then we found out that these were not the real reasons for the physical education teachers. They immediately said, yeah, but we can work with everything within this physical education class because we are the experts. We know how to do this. And at the same time, they said, yeah, you can give us more time now, but if you give us more time for this, that it means that you're taking away some time from something else, and we don't want that. So suddenly we had some implementation issues here. But luckily, again, with the school principals in the adoption phase, they said, well, but you're going to implement the program anyway. And because they said you have to implement the program anyway, luckily, the physical education teachers were actually implementing the program. So hooray, we also had good implementation. For the maintenance, also some sort of struggle, you have to look at the next generation of physical education teachers. So in this case, most important was that we needed to train the next generation of physical education teachers. We needed to make sure that the leadership was okay for the future. And even there, we managed to go to those schools. I don't know how to say it in English, but to the schools where physical education teachers are trained to become a physical education teacher. But of course, within our struggles, we also noticed, so basically we spent 3 years on all of this, and then something else happened. And then suddenly the adoption, implementation, and maintenance were not a priority anymore for those for those people or for those different stakeholders, meaning that, yeah, it was not adopted, implemented, maintained anymore. People were not aware of our program anymore, meaning that we sort of have to start all over again. In short, and I'm going to stop here soon after. So we know a lot about implementation. Even within all those struggles that we have, we know a lot about implementation, but we're still not there. But some lessons learned from this presentation, I think, repeatedly said already today, that you have to identify and involve all stakeholders from the beginning, and not from the beginning of your implementation, but from the beginning of your intervention development already. You have to make use of existing theory and knowledge. And basically, it also has been said today already. But for me, I think a most important lesson is be patient, because even in this case, we're spending 7 years on the implementation itself already, and we're still not there. I'm going to stop here. I had 2 more slides. I was already aware that I could not present them today, but this is actually a very interesting paper that reduces the time of implementation. I give you the time to take a quick picture, and then I move on to my very last slide, in which I just say thank you. But they give some suggestions on how to increase or speed up the implementation process. And with that having said, I want to thank you for your attention.